Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace reporting live here at the Keystone Korner Baltimore Jazz Club here in Baltimore, Maryland. When you think of the Keystone Korner, you think of one of the most prolific, if not important, jazz clubs on the West Coast in San Francisco. The Keystone Korner was founded by jazz impresario as well as producer and writer Todd Barkan. Now, in the span of about close to 14 years, the Keystone Korner was very, very important for the musicians of the idiom of jazz, whether they're the young or the old, to come and play to an audience to affordable prices. Today here in Baltimore, Maryland, he's kept that vision. In fact, Todd right now is one of the few promoters as well as managers that are booking international acts here at the Keystone Korner during this pandemic. Tonight, Todd and I sit down candidly and we talk about how he's been able to keep this going. He's only been open for a couple of weeks, and how the musicians are responding to coming to perform here, how he's had to revamp the whole club to the coronavirus and social distancing, as well as talk about and reflect on the life of McCoy Tyner, who is an important stalwart to the Keystone Korner Jazz Club in San Francisco. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my candid conversation with NEA Jazz Master, Todd Barkan, live here at the Keystone Korner Baltimore Jazz Club here in Baltimore, Maryland. You know, the world knows the Keystone Korner as a stalwart of one of the best jazz clubs on the West Coast. And now everybody now has to reprogram themselves to come to Baltimore, Maryland. How did this happen?
Well, when I was awarded the award of National Endowment of the Arts, recognized as a National Endowment of the Arts Jazz Master in April of 2018, the guy who was hosting the awards dinner for the NEA is a guy named Robert Wiedmeyer. And we became fast friends, and our wives became very dear friends. And we started hanging out a bit, and we decided maybe it'd be a good idea to open up a restaurant, because he has the award-winning Marcel's in Washington and about 8 other restaurants. Maybe we could open up a place that had the greatest food and the greatest music in the world. And you know, we looked originally at Washington D.C., but it was a little dicey. I mean, there was the zoning and all that kind of stuff. And we realized that he owned a place here in Baltimore. It was called the Muscle Bar and Grill originally, and we, it had been closed for about a year, and we decided to reopen it and build a stage and a sound system and readapt it a little. And lo and behold, it became the Keystone Korner in Baltimore. We opened on International Jazz Day on April 30th of 2019, a little over 15 months ago, and here we are, Keystone Korner Baltimore.
Todd, you are one of the very few people right now in the country, if not the world, that are booking jazz acts in this pandemic. What did the Keystone Korner, as far as management, what did you guys have to put together in order for people to start coming back to enjoy this music?
Well, we had to do a lot of work here at the club. We made the seating much more spacious. We really adapted to this very challenging situation now to make it as healthy and as spacious and as safe and a conducive environment for our music as we could. We lowered the seating capacity from 240 to 80 and built plexiglass between the booths and all kinds of stuff. To the whole staff wearing gloves and masks, and everybody here doing the same, so that we could really, make this a safe environment for the music and for the musicians, for the artists and the art to prosper and be presented in a living environment.
Todd, you have booked some very important, if not iconic, acts here in the next 4 to 5 months. Roy Ayers was slated to come next week, but he's acknowledging the dates in October. Has that affected you any kind of way as far as some of the musicians you booked?
No, not really. I mean, this is an era where you have to be, you have to be flexible and you have to be adaptive. You have to improvise, and we have all kinds of wonderful artists who are scheduled to come in the next few months. Some of them might have to be moved. We have to go with the flow and present the greatest music we can every week, and still be deferential and respectful and very cautious and very careful in terms of not going too fast and using a lot of the artists who live here, like Sean Jones and Warren Wolf and all the great players that are here. Like this week, Tim Green is here with Cyrus Chestnut and the wonderful Steve Kirby, Obasi Akoto, and Quincy Phillips, who are world-class players, are here this week. And Warren Wolf has been here did a live stream broadcast with Joe Locke. He's coming back, Warren Wolf, and doing a gig here for 3 nights with Joe. But we'll be flexible, and we have to just adapt to the ongoing conditions of this very challenging situation, this pandemic that besets the whole world. But we still have to be life affirming, and that's the main thing. We have to. This music is one of the most life affirming, if not as life affirming as anything in our entire world. So we have to, it's a blessing to be with this music, and to try to present it, in conditions that are as safe and as life-affirming as possible, because the music itself is so precious and so important. I think the music itself saves lives, and it affirms the best values of our life. Swinging is as life-affirming a thing as there can be in the world, and no matter how much you experience it online, and we're going to continue to do online broadcasts, live streaming, as often as possible. But as much as live streaming is important, also the living experience of, even if there's 15, 20, 25, 30 people in the room, they give back to the music. It's a sharing of creative cycles. That's what the music is all about, coming from the creator to the creators of this music, to the audience, and then being recycled back to the artist from the audience. That's a very important part of what this music experience. It's a living art form, and it's a life-affirming art form. So, that's what's very, very important. There are certain things that happen, and they just feel right when they do happen. And this is a great cultural city, and it always has had a wonderful audience for this music. So but we hadn't had a jazz club, a full-time major jazz club here in over 35 years, since Ethel's Place. And this is the home of the Left Bank Jazz Society, and a very wonderful jazz audience. And we're going to present more younger artists and as much as possible, and try to develop as much of a younger audience for the music, to develop the present and the future of what this music is all about. Because that's a part of what we have to do to make it, to fulfill the mission of a Keystone Korner Baltimore. And my heart goes out to all our colleagues in this music, because this has been the roughest challenge, I think. I mean, I haven't felt, when I started the original Keystone Korner, it was during the middle. People called me crazy because I was starting a jazz club in the middle of the rock and roll, real crest of rock and roll in the Bay Area, and Both Ann was the only jazz club left, and it was shortly to disappear. So we kind of took the baton and went with it in the 70s, which was a very rough decade in New York City. That was a rough time in New York City. So, so this is a much bigger challenge than it was even in the 70s in San Francisco, because this is the middle of a pandemic and trying to get people out safely, and this is very much a word-of-mouth town, Baltimore. So you have to start reaching out person to person. You can't, only so much you can do on social media. You have to reach out. People have to come. I'd say, oh, that was cool, that was healthy, that was safe, and recommend it to other friends. And so you have to build back up the audience. We were doing tremendously well, up as of last January, February, and March, and then boom, a few days before Roy Ayers was supposed to come in the first time for his second engagement, which was already sold out from January. We had to postpone till July, and then Roy, because of his age and being cautious and being safe, feels safer about doing the gig in October, which is beautiful. I mean, we feel blessed to have him here anytime. And likewise, we feel blessed to have any of these artists here. And if it has to be postponed, I had a long talk with the wonderful people that own Blues Alley in D.C., with Harry Schnipper and with the guy who books it, Chris Ross, and they're having similar challenges, just getting rolling and getting started, and getting people out, because it's a challenging situation, but we're going to make it happen. And I'm sure there are going to be more outdoor concerts in our music than ever, and I think that's a healthy thing too. I think whatever we can do and however we can do it, the bringing streaming into the picture, I think, is a healthy phenomenon, because anything that spreads our music to a greater audience. I mean, I know the people at Jazz at Lincoln Center, Wynton Marsalis, and all of them have been, innovators in that area, and the wonderful guy at Smoke and Mesro, Spike Wilner, has been a pioneer in that area. I mean, bringing this music to as many people as you can, which I started to do when I was at Jazz Lincoln Center myself, and helped start Dizzy's there. I mean, but when we developed a very large international audience, now that it's going to take some time to get that international audience in person back, but they certainly can be reached by streaming and online. So we have to just keep at it. It's almost like the mythological Sisyphus, who kept pushing a rock up a hill, and then if he stepped back, the rock came back down. So you got to keep pushing it up, and we're very much involved in that kind of effort now. It takes as much faith and dedication and perseverance, I think, than it's ever taken, as much and more than it's ever taken in the entire history of our music. Louis Armstrong went through the first coronavirus pandemic, and fortunately we didn't lose him in that, because imagine where the music would be if we had lost Louis Armstrong. So, it's not a new challenge, but I think the depth, breadth, and scope of this pandemic, because this is a social upheaval happening on so many levels: financial, cultural, spiritual. There's so many things going on, and now in the middle of an electoral struggle that's going on, in our political struggle that's going on in our own country, which I hope for the best. I'm still a positivist in this world, despite all that we've gone through. I mean, I think it's important that this music is a positive force, and you have to be a positive force along with it. That doesn't mean you have to be unrealistic, but you also have to believe in the power and the faith and the love involved. This is a music born of love and swing, and look what it's endured and what it's transcended to be what it is today, where it's gone today. And we've lost a lot of our elders, and a lot of our, we're standing on the shoulders of some tremendous people, tremendous artists, and tremendous cultural heroes. We're standing on their shoulders, and we must never forget whose shoulders we're standing on. I mean, we would not be here without those folks. Louis Armstrong and Dexter Gordon and Miles Davis and Ahmad Jamal, and all the great people who've helped create this music to be where it is. Bud Powell and Bill Evans and everybody that's contributed so much and so intrinsically to this sublime art form. And it's a blessing to be involved in it. And that helps me a lot of times when you can easily get discouraged about this or that or the other thing, and short-term struggles. And it's made me realize, how blessed I am to be in it. And that's got me through a lot of challenges and rough patches. And This is another rough patch, but I feel blessed that we're one of the first venues open, if not the first. So I feel it's a blessing. And even when I look out and the opening night and see 18 people or 16 people, I feel appreciative of every one of those 16 or 18 people.
You know what I've noticed? The music fans that have come I've been here a couple of days now, and I've noticed that they walk away a little bit uplifted before the time they came in. And I think Cyrus, with his spirit and what he's been doing with how he plays, I think people need to come back out here. That's why it was important for me to come down here to let people know that it's okay to come out. Everybody, the sky is falling. Literally, it is falling. All this stuff you're talking about.
Right.
We're dealing with 5 different things at the same time, but at the same time, you've put your presence in this, and people are gradually coming back to this.
Right, and it's really enheartening to watch people be uplifted by this music. It's more than an intellectual or idealistic or abstract concept. It's a very visceral, heart-lifting experience to be in the same room with this music, and that's why I'm so happy for each and every one of these people that comes. I try to thank each and every one of them that comes in before and after the show, because I'm thrilled that they're here, and they're making a statement by coming, and by sharing their time with us. So we never take that for granted, and we got a wonderful group of people here that we work with, and we're getting the live streaming. We've just really introduced that in the last few weeks. So we're building it's a new chapter for Keystone Korner, and I hope it's the first of many more chapters coming up, because I think it's something that's needed in this world, and I'm praying for the New York scene, and I'm praying for the Philadelphia scene, and I'm praying for the people in Chicago and Detroit and L.A. and San Francisco, and in London and Paris and everywhere, in Tokyo and Osaka, and everywhere that this music is played all over the world, to see the resurgence of live music, because those are like beacons. Those are temples for our music, and they need to all come back. I mean, in some way, shape, or form. I know that Spike Wilner, who's one of my heroes, personal heroes in this music, for what he's done for all these years, especially recently, I know that he's got an implacable landlord that he's dealing with, and other challenges.
He's been verbal about it on Facebook.
Oh, yes, he has. He's been very open about it and very transparent about it, which I admire and I respect. And whether he stays in that same venue, he's able to transcend that, or whether he's able to, because knowing Spike, he'll go out and start another venue.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. We lost some stalwarts here in the last 3 months, and one of your dear friends who you had the honor of producing many of his records, dear friend to you, me, beautiful spirit, Freddie Cole. What are your reflections on Freddie's musical life and him as a friend?
Well, Freddie Cole and I were very blessed to find each other in the early 80s, and after I came from Keystone Korner to New York, and he was working in some lounges. He was working in Atlantic City and Las Vegas and Reno, and I helped him get a gig at Bradley's, of all places, and because I first heard him in a East Side kind of a mafia bar kind of place, and he was working for the Tip Jar, and so I helped to facilitate something that he richly deserved, and I didn't. I just opened the door for him, and he just waltzed on through, because he's such a great artist and such a great human being. But we started working together, I was producing albums for Japan and here in the United States, and we did an album for Japan. We started a series of 20 albums we worked on together, 20 records, including several Grammy nominations and a lot of wonderful work. And I worked with him as a manager, but primarily as a producer. And Freddie Cole was one of the greatest, cultural forces that I ever worked with. I mean, he was one. First of all, nobody has ever known and will ever know any more about the Great American Songbook or serve it with more passion and artistry and elegance and eloquence than Freddie Cole. He was a supremely gifted artist. As Hank Jones said when we were doing that record, All My Tomorrows with Grover Washington, he said, don't sleep on Freddie Cole as a piano player. And coming from Hank Jones, Bad Henry, that was the high praise. And he was a great artist up and down the line. And, you know, he emerged from the shadow of his brother. And I'm Not My Brother, I'm Me.
That's right.
The album that he recorded. And he was in many, many ways just a profoundly, he explored, I consider him to be an explorer of the inner frontiers of harmony, melody, and rhythm. He was an inside explorer. And he taught me as much. I mean, he was one of the 3 or 4 greatest teachers that I had in my life. I mean, we were collaborators, we worked together, we very much produced those records together. And we would come up with song lists of 25, 30 songs, and then in a month's time they would evolve down to 10, 12, 14 songs, whatever those songs told a little story in their interrelationship with one another. So we created some really memorable records that we were both very proud of. And I'm still proud. I'll be proud of that work as long as I'm out here. But he was just a profoundly gifted artist, and a lot of people loved Freddie Cole for good reason, because there was just love in every note he sang and every note he played. There was a lot of love and there was a lot of heart, and nobody ever swung with any more elegance and taste and heartfelt ability than Freddie Cole.
Another stalwart, McCoy Tyner, who was really one of your big draws when you had the Keystone Korner out in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah. No, he was a Keystone. I mean, McCoy Tyner was one of the founding fathers of the Keystone Korner, along with Ron Carter, who helped found this club. Ron Carter and McCoy Tyner and Elvin Jones got together with Rahsaan Roland Kirk and Freddie Hubbard and did a benefit concert for the original Keystone Korner. We raised $85,000 at the Paramount Theater in Oakland, and we bought a liquor license. And that kept that club open for the last 9 or 10 years it was open. So, I mean, but McCoy Tyner was not only did he draw a lot of people, but he really was an anchor of that club. I mean, he set the tonality, along with Bobby Hutcherson, Dexter Gordon, Rahsaan Roland Kirk, of course, who did Bright Moments there and was one of my mentors and age-old buddies. He set the tonality. He was about one of 5 or 6 artists. Art Blakey I would put in that category too, and Elvin, and Max Roach, and McCoy Tyner. But just a spirituality. When he first came into Keystone, he came in with Sonny Fortune and Alphonse Mouzon and Calvin Hill. They had just recorded that Sahara album for Milestone. And that music just took us all to another planet. And that was part of how the Keystone took off. That Grover Washington has just done his Mr. Magic. McCoy was doing his thing and being a part of the club, just lifting off. And McCoy's music, as it does for so many of us, it's just a standard of spiritual greatness. It's a spiritual transcendence. McCoy really set a standard of such tremendous spirituality and creative expression that it is an eternal standard for us in this music. When we hear music that is anywhere near that level of creativity, then it's the music that really helps make this a worldwide language that reaches the most people. So he was a standard setter and bearer, and he will always be, in our music that way. Just like Freddie was for the Great American Songbook, Yeah. I mean, they were standard setters, and they'll always be with us. They'll always be with us.
Okay. Keystone Korner has some highlights with those great live albums that I vividly remember that came out of San Francisco. Are you looking to rekindle that moment and bring some more great live moments back here?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's I mean, that's always a goal in everything that we do, and to become kind of a Keystone Korner, a salient effort that we're making. There have already been 3 wonderful recording sessions here in the first year. Stanley Cowell with a quintet, and Eddie Palmieri with his Afro-Caribbean sextet. That's fantastic music, and I'm sure it will see the light of day very soon. I mean, this whole pandemic has put a lot of things on hold. And then Cindy Blackman Santana just recorded a magnificent album here over 3 nights just this year in 2020, right before the pandemic hit. So we've already done 3, and Cyrus is recording this very weekend. I mean, it might be an album, it might not. I mean, he's, in other words, it's all part of what we're trying to do. That's always an important part. Also, putting a place on the map. Putting Keystone back on the map. This is the East Coast Keystone Korner. But it's always part of what we're doing. It's always part of what we're doing, because that's then you're sharing it just with geometrically more people. It just multiplies the reach of the music that you have. The music that you're creating, to create archetypal recordings. And that's much what the guy has done at Smoke, in New York. I mean, that's part of, he's realized that vision very, very well. I got a lot of admiration for Paul Stash and the whole crowd there. And it's a great combination of having a performing venue and doing recordings at the same time, because you're documenting and you're enlarging the audience at the same time. And you can't ask for more than that. Spike Wilner's done some magnificent recordings, and I'm sure, and streaming them all over the world. And I'm sure you told me that he just upgraded his AV setup, so I'm sure it'll be more and more multi-dimensional what he does. So that's my musical family right there. I mean, that's part of, we're all part of the same effort, the same community. And I think in the jazz community we have to understand and celebrate that fact even more than we are. And I think this type of a challenge and this type of a ordeal, because it is an ordeal, helps, if anything, helps us have even more camaraderie and more collegiality and more collaboration in something like this, because we have to work together. We have no choice. I mean, united we stand, and united we grow and develop, and everybody's going to have to be a lot more flexible. And I'm finding that that's the case. I'm finding that out. So that's a very reassuring part of all that's going on now, because it's perforce and necessity. Necessity is is not only the mother of invention, sometimes it's the mother of survival. It's very important. So we have, cooperation and collaboration go hand in hand to really take this music somewhere else. I mean, nobody knows how long this immediate condition is gonna last realistically, but I think we can get through it. But it's gonna test all of our mettle to do it, but we can do it.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the Keystone Korner Baltimore Jazz Club here in Baltimore, Maryland. I'd like to personally congratulate and thank Mr. Todd Barkan for his wonderful hospitality over the last couple of days here. Also, please support this club and this venue. For more information and showtimes, please visit them online at KeystoneKornerBaltimore.com, as well as their Facebook page at Facebook.com/Keystone Korner Baltimore. As always, please visit my website, thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.